The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Carter.
Here.
Huffman.
Here.
Matacastillo.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Or here.
Here. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First item is to approve the agenda for January 15th.
So
please.
moved.
Second.
We have motion and second. Roll call.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Matacastillo. Aye. McGuire.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Our next item is to approve the minutes from January 8th, please.
So moved.
We
Second.
have motion and second. Any corrections? Roll call.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Matacastillo. Aye. McGuire.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Our next item is a presentation of an award, an Employee Achievement Award. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Good morning. If I could get Deputy Samantha Lowe to come forward?
And I know her mom and dad are here too. You guys should come up too.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
And any others that would like to join her?
Yeah,
She's-
there's room up there. Come on.
She's giving a head
Yeah,
nod to
this is-
somebody here.
This is a celebration.
Oh,
Be a part of
fiancé.
it.
Okay, well, I have to tell you, as I was learning this and reading this about you, I realized very clearly why you were awarded this achievement award. And I'm going to do my best to do justice to just how incredible your actions were and you as a person. So, Deputy Sheriff Samantha Lowe is nominated for a Ramsey County Employee Achievement Award in the category of Excellent Job Performance and Community Contributions. So a double nomination. Her nomination reflects her expertise and professionalism along with the empathy and compassion that she displayed in response to an incident on February 23rd, 2018. If not for Deputy Lowe's calm and proactive efforts, that incident could have turned into a tragedy for the youth, his family, and the community. Less than 2 weeks after the Parkland, Florida school shooting, Deputy Lowe, who had been a full-time patrol deputy for only 2 years, responded to a 911 call that a male was behaving aggressively and pointing what looked like a rifle from a window in a Falcon Heights apartment complex. It was dark when the deputy arrived that evening, but she was able to see a young man outside the apartment complex. The youth appeared to have a long gun or rifle in his hand. Deputy Lowe saw him run and hide behind a car. After several attempts to command him to drop the gun and come out, he complied. As she gained his compliance, she also sought to reassure him, telling him, "You are fine. You are fine. Stand there. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you." Deputy Lowe discovered that the young man had a replica of a Remington 700 sniper rifle, which typically shoots BBs. Most significantly, the male who was arrested was a 14-year-old boy. Deputy Lowe's response clearly reflected her training, expertise, and ability to stay cool under pressure, operating with sound tactics. However, what speaks to her excellence and community contribution is what happened next. After the youth was arrested, Deputy Lowe not only talked with his relatives, showing tremendous compassion for him and his family, but as part of the resolution of this case, she agreed to participate in a restorative justice circle with the young man and his mother. It was reported that the outcome was a complete success, and the family thanked Deputy Lowe for her support and willingness to work with their son. Even after the case was resolved, Deputy Lowe continued to maintain contact with the family. For example, she met with this young man and some of his friends and talked with them about gun violence and ways they could have a safe summer. Deputy Lowe's ability in the field, coupled with the empathy she showed to the family, does not surprise her award nominator, Kate Rickman. Thank you, Kate. Director of the County Attorney's Office Juvenile Division, nor Sergeant Keith Olson of the Sheriff's Department, of the Sheriff's Office. Is he here? Okay. All right, he works nights. Okay, but we do thank him for doing that as well. Kate Rickman said that Deputy Lowe treats other people's children like her own. She gets to their level and talks to them. She said the deputy believes that children need a chance in life, which is also reflected in her membership of the Minnesota Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee. Sergeant Olson describes Deputy Lowe's way of policing as a proactive effort and that she possesses the skills for community policing. Clearly you do. She makes a point to talk with adults, youth, and children, he said. She will stop at community centers and soccer or basketball games. She is also an active participant at outreach efforts such as the Sheriff's Office meet and greets, at local coffee shops, and the popular Hot Dogs with the Deputy, hosted at the city parks. Deputy Lowe, on behalf of the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners and the Employee Achievement Award Selection Committee, we hereby congratulate you and present you with this award and thank you for an excellent job performance and contribution to the community.
Well, thank you. I'm not very good at this, so bear with me. And I also work nights, so I'm still trying to wake up. But, I really owe this to my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, and my better half. Kate, you've taught me how to work with kids. You've been a great role model, mentor. Tina McNamara, I work for a great department that supports us. They make our job easy. All the training efforts, allowing us to go to training, the morals, the values, it just makes my job easy. And of course, your support. I mean, we just work for a great county, so thank you.
Wow.
You're part of this.
Want the sister to get in the picture too? Come on.
Yeah, definitely.
You got that nice call out.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations, and thanks for your work, and thanks to everybody here that showed up to support you in recognition of the well-earned award.
That's right.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt.
That's fabulous.
Isn't it though?
All right, we're going to move into the administrative items. Commissioner Ortega.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move item number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Second.
A motion is second. Roll call on the administrative items, please.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Yes.
Huffman,
Aye.
Mattakastil. Aye. McGuire.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Our next item is our policy item for today. It's the Ramsey County 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update that will be submitted to the Metropolitan Council. County Manager O'Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I
Connor.
could invite up,
Commissioner O'Ryan.
whatever works. I'm going to invite up the Policy Director, Elizabeth Tolzman, and Senior Policy Analyst, Max Holdhusen, to do a brief walkthrough and presentation on the 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, thank you. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Elizabeth Tolzman, Director of Policy and Planning, and I have my Senior Policy Analyst, I didn't realize how tall you were until you're standing next to me, Max Holdhusen, who's been a phenomenal person to help coordinate this process. This started more than 5 years ago when the Met Council released its Thrive MSP 2040 plan and asked that each jurisdiction within the state work and align their efforts for submitting a plan to the Met Council around regional efforts. In this past 5 years, we spent a lot of time looking at our demographic data, our trends. We attended other cities' comp plans within Ramsey County, participated in their advisory groups, particularly the city of Roseville and the city of Maplewood. And we created an internal cross-county team to move this work as well. Our service team structure really allowed us the ability to do that effectively and efficiently. And in addition to that, we set forth this plan utilizing three lenses, through a lens of one, resilience, two, racial equity, and our health and all policies work. And this helped align our work with our parks system plan, our transportation plan, active living, and our racial equity work countywide. And we went above and beyond the required components of the plan. Not only did we include transportation, water resources, parks and trails, and housing, but when you look at our plan, we also talked, especially in our housing chapter, we talked about affordable housing and homelessness. We brought that to light. We talked about land use, even though counties do not have zoning authority. We talked about our role in that as well. And we added chapters around resilience and economic competitiveness. And as a result of that engagement and that process, things came up like busing, transportation, biking, walkability, amenities in our parks and recs. But other issues came to light, such as the need for affordable housing, a livable wage, access to our community and our green space, and discrimination, including defense of tenant and renters' rights, were things that came up throughout our process as well. And a result of this process, our plan it's online, it's produced. You guys had the last 8 to 9 months seeing the draft version and the final version that we submitted last week. Our plan is not just about economic development and transportation and planning, which are really important things about the comp plan. It's also about the health and well-being of our community. And that really came to light as a result of this process. But so I'm going to hand over to Max to talk more about our highlights of our engagement efforts and our outreach. But I really want to thank some key folks who helped put this plan together in the last 18 months. One, our communications department, by making it easy to read, visually appealing, having it online. They went above and beyond throughout our entire process and worked hand in hand with us to make sure this was accessible and available to the community. Two, all the deputy county managers, the directors, the senior leaders, key staff who worked on this plan. We literally had a plan working week by week, not only working on our plan, but reviewing our neighboring jurisdictions' plans as well as part of the process. And finally, I really want to thank Max Holdelson, who really, since his inception and in the midst of all of our transition, took this lead of coordinating all the efforts and the work. He spent more than 20 hours over this past weekend putting the final touches and incorporating the feedback that each of you provided to one of us as well. So,
Great.
hand over to
Thank
Max.
you, Elizabeth. Max?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Should I be here? I don't know. Thank you for that, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to talk more about the outreach and engagement process. So the Metropolitan Council required 3 key pieces, and that was a 6-month public comment period that started in May 2018 and ended in November 2018. Through that, we posted the plan online in an easy-to-read, accessible fashion where each chapter was broke up the document, and you could click on each chapter. Each chapter then had a comment box that you could click into and leave comments. Those comments went directly to my email inbox, and we received, over that 6-month period, we received about 20 comments. Furthermore, for requirements, we had to send our plan to each city, school district, and watershed district within the county, and every city and county that touches Ramsey County as well. All those cities and counties were also required to send their plan to us. So we reviewed all of the cities within Ramsey County's plans to look for alignment. Going above and the last requirement is the public hearing. So on December 18th, 2018, that's when we held our public hearing as the requirement to submit. Beyond the requirements, Ramsey County utilized an online project management website called Basecamp, and we invited all of our neighboring cities to participate in that, so they were able to follow along with us as we created drafts throughout the entire year. Social media was also used between August and December 2018. We used a variety of social media platforms, and 227 engagements occurred on those platforms. Interestingly, LinkedIn was the most utilized platform there. I think because of the nature of the plan, it's mostly for city staff and planners who are most interested. But after that, it was evident that we were missing some underrepresented voices, and so we focused then on presenting to community groups that really did represent those underrepresented voices, including the Food and Nutrition Commission, District 1 Community Council over on the east side of St. Paul, the West Side Community Organization across the river, and We also contracted with 2 community organizations, Move Minnesota, focused on communities on the east side of St. Paul, specifically the East African community and the apartment complexes in the Battle Creek and Highwood Hills neighborhoods. They did actually a really innovative but simple idea, just analyzing existing feedback from surveys that have already occurred, which might sound common sense, but we often don't do that. They hear often that communities feel over-surveyed and fatigued by engagement processes, so this was a good way to loop back in things that have already occurred. The second contractor we used was Kitty Anderson Youth Science Center out of the Science Museum of Minnesota. This is a nonprofit that focuses on providing opportunities for youth to get involved in STEM and job opportunities. So that includes, in this case, learning about county government. So they really built a foundation of what is a county government and how does that differ than a city government or a state government. And most of the kids were from the St. Paul Public Schools and were from communities of color. Youth had the opportunity to share their experiences on civics and community in general, but also with the categories of, they focused on economy, parks, and housing. And they described their vision for the future. From these contracts, we learned that if given the platform and meeting community where they are, people are actually really interested in something that seems really daunting, like a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan presented an opportunity to pilot Ramsey County's enhanced community engagement efforts, as well as honor the past work that's occurred in the county that inspired the content of the chapter plans. And now that we have connected and coordinated our planning efforts, we're excited to implement the vision over the next 20 years. Thank you.
Right?
Mr. Chair, another thanks to Elizabeth and Max for their work on this and everybody else across the county who chipped in. I think it's always instructive if you were to go back and look at the last submission of the comprehensive plan 5 years ago under the former policy director, unfortunately. No one can be immune from the criticism. The leaps that we have taken in this draft of the plan, and part of it is a recognition, as Elizabeth stated, about our organization and the structure allowed for conversations that simply we could not have 5 years ago. And it went beyond talking about the idea that somehow we should all be a part of a plan to building a plan that we and the community were all a part of. As we look forward, I think the big goals that have been talked about quite a bit are how to continually go back to our own plan when we're talking about issues in workshops. For example, in February, we're having a housing affordability policy discussion. We should start with what we talked about in our comprehensive plan and what our cities wrote in their plans as a baseline for that dialogue. And that has not always been the way that has happened. And so that's the final piece, is while we should hold ourselves accountable based on the excellent work done to date in our plan, we're also taking a look at what our cities wrote. And at times in our conversations, we see spots of misalignment between what their vision is stated to be and also where they're at. And so how do we encourage and support them to continue to come along with their comprehensive plan as well? But we plan to make these living, breathing documents and look forward to more coming up in the future.
Thank you. Questions, comments for?
Mr. Chair, I just want to congratulate the staff on truly a great plan. Having not been involved previously, I did read it in detail, and it's truly a plan that we can be proud of. And I just want to echo your comments that this is an opportunity for us to, really measure ourselves against our plan, in good, relying on my military strategy stuff. You create a really good plan, you evaluate the plan, and then you adjust as we go. And that's really what's going to bring our county into success. So congratulations. It's a really good plan, and it's something that we can all be proud of.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and I was also going to say how well it is done, but I think one of the reasons, going back to the community engagement and really talking to people and hearing them, not just listening, but hearing them. And it's obvious in the plan, the amount of work and the engagement and the excitement about that engagement comes through in it as well. So thank you.
Okay. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just add my thanks to this, and then just to remind people, this is online, right? And if people want to see a certain section, because it's a really big plan, so it'll be itemized. I mean, if people want to know how we're doing that or what the plan is for housing or community engagement, that will be itemized. So people can go online and do that. And I know a number of us are going to be at a
League of Women Voters meeting tonight, I know we'll be talking a bit about, just some of our goals based on this plan. So it's a great plan, and I'm excited to start using it, and to continue to use it, because I know we've been thinking about it for a long time, and I'm excited about that. So thank you.
A couple quick comments. Max, you mentioned common sense and how I think I'm going to talk kind of the bigger picture about this path and journey we're on, right? You mentioned common sense. That doesn't always line up with bureaucracies, right? And you mentioned about 5 years ago when you led this, and where we're at today. And I don't look at those as criticisms. Really, I think we did the best we could with the environment we provided and the tools we provided. And we're seeing the benefits of the work we've been doing over the last 5 years, that we've provided a foundation to be able to actually, approach this differently and actually use the word common sense as we're part of the discussion, I think is a really good thing. And then I just want to take a moment to touch base on the community engagement, because I think this is an example of the path we want to be on how we approach community engagement, the experiences that you have learned, and from here to continue to grow on how we engage with our communities is going to be really valuable moving forward with the rest of our departments. And I want to recognize that authentic community engagement sometimes could be trying to find the right word here for our folks, right? Because we've got a lot of professionals that put their heart and mind in things, but then to put that out in the community, to actually get that feedback and that interaction and be able to adjust and be responsive and actually connecting that professional expertise with the needs and desires and hopes and dreams with our community is where we end up with the best I call it a product, but in this case, the comp plan, right? And I think this comp plan really highlights the professional expertise and history and experiences of all our professionals that have worked on things like this for years and are been a part of the community, but integrates those hopes and dreams about what our community residents are expecting and hoping for, what their communities look like going into the future. So I just want to thank you guys, everybody on the team that put that work into this. I think I agree with all the commissioners here. We've got a good product that we can be proud of, and we should be using it. We should be using it in the community. We should be using it as we connect to our work moving forward. So thank you. All right. I don't recall. Do you have? Oh, we're going to do an approval right now. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the
Thank you.
2040 comp plan.
And we have some, multiple seconds there. Any more comments, discussion on the plan itself? Roll call, please.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. All right, what am I going to call you this time? Friend. County Connections.
Mr. Chair, members, and just one tie back here to what we were just talking about. In our effort to try and better link our documentation in the board materials directly with what is online on our website, we've been trying to put hyperlinks or URLs directly into board materials. So, for example, if someone was watching the last piece and they wanted to go type in comprehensive plan, this would show up on our website if you just search for it. But there were 2 links in the actual request for board action documentation that lead you directly to the point as well. And so now if anyone were to go back and look at today's board materials, those links are directly embedded within. That was a change we started to make last year to try and just make it as easy as possible in as many places as possible to find information. 2 other updates for you today. The annual point-in-time homelessness count that is required by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development federal agency, for every community in the country serves a static count of the number of people experiencing homelessness. It is coming up. It is the principal means for how we gauge the need for homeless assistance resources nationally and locally. I will also point out as an aside, as someone with a statistics background, and I think our person would agree with this, it's really not a great way to count homelessness. We pick one night in the middle of the winter in Minnesota to go out and decide how many people are living on the street. And so while telling you about this, I also want to acknowledge we got to find ways to continue with our region and our state to do better in our counts. They're naturally going to be lower if you go out in February than if you were to go out in June. And I find that to be a really curious way that we count. But the results of this point in time study directly impact the amount of funding that Ramsey County receives. It's actually the night of January 23rd coming up. And so we are participating with Heading Home Ramsey to currently recruit final volunteers to assist with the unsheltered homeless count. So if you or anyone you are around in your community wants to be a part of this, we need as much help as we can get. We have count locations and times that actually go from the 23rd to the 30th. So it's a week long where we're out doing the point in time pieces. If you want to sign up or get more information, the easiest way to do it is headinghomeramsey.org. So headinghomeramsey, all one word, .org. Or you can find Zach Hilton, who's here today, our policy analyst who's been leading this work on behalf of the county. Zach had been working over in Health and Wellness Administration, and Elizabeth, about 6 months ago, promoted him to a policy analyst role in the county manager's office when an opening became available. And it highlights the power of bringing the knowledge from one area and taking it countywide in our work. Thank you, Zach. Final piece on the strategic plan advancements, Mr. Chair, I would just note the rest of our day is all about talking about our strategic plan and our policy direction as we head into 2019 and how that has an impact on shaping the next biennial budget. So I'll leave the rest of it for this afternoon's work session and stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortega, outside board and committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This Sunday, I was the welcoming board member of Landmark Senators for the first urban expedition, which was Puerto Rico. And it was a great success. I asked the staff roughly how many people. They said easily 400 to 500 people, and that was at 2 o'clock with an hour left to go. There was music, food, performances, great mix of people, a lot of folks from the West Metro area, which is a good thing for Landmark. So it was very successful and a great event.
Good, thanks. Just for all the commissioners, they do a number of these throughout the year, and Amy Mino always loves it when a commissioner comes and can do an introduction for one. So
exactly.
You can look at the schedule, and if there's one you want to introduce, just reach out. Both Raphael and Victoria are on the board, but Amy directly.
Great point, Mr. Chair. This is the first of a series that goes every Sunday right through the summer, I believe. Yes, anybody's welcome to sort of do the welcoming. It takes you about 5 minutes, and then you could enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McGuire, any updates?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on a side on Puerto Rico, Lin-Manuel Miranda is in Puerto Rico reprising his role in Hamilton for the next few weeks as a fundraiser for the people of Puerto Rico. I think it's a great effort. Anyway, I will forego actually my own personal update, but to give the legislative update. And so we'll start doing that. Today will be the first day that I'll start doing those, and those will be on the agenda from now on, that I'll do the legislative update. Our government relations staff is in full swing down at the Capitol already with Jen O'Rourke and Claudia Brewington, and Nick Riley is there on a contract basis. But it is the second week. I'll just give you some highlights now then. Second weeks, they're doing normal organizing, meeting in committees. They're getting their staff situated and their offices, and lots of celebration last week, but now they're doing overviews in the committees, and the House is actually having a couple of hearings now on the effects of the national shutdown, so how that's impacting our state. So I know the governor's getting briefed as well on, the kinds of things that the state can be ready for, and is bracing for with that. And we're hoping that ends very soon. The priorities of the Senate and House majorities have been laid out generally in their initial bills that they passed. And we have a divided legislature. There are issues that we all agree on, and it's exciting. So, many of them, I think most of them, are all priorities that AMC has. So they're county priorities too, and they include the opioid crisis, healthcare funding, tax conformity, transportation projects, and funding. I think these are all issues that we all want to work on. Of course, how we do that and how we fund them is always the big question, and so those will be the things that will be debated. We've set our legislative delegation meeting. It's hopefully on all of your calendars. It's going to be Friday, January 25th. It'll be in the morning between 10:30 and noon. So we'll get a chance to visit with all of our Ramsey County legislators and talk about our agenda and how we can all work together on that. And our team, our lobbying team is working with AMC and Metro Parks and all of our different organizations to make sure that our agendas are in line with each other and that we're all able to help each other work on those. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to our team.
Yeah.
And thanks to my colleague co-chair, Tony Carter, we are starting our weekly meetings as well. And so if you have an issue that does come up for, that you'd like to be included in our platform, as we know issues will come up, we'd like you to bring those to us so we can look at it as a committee and get it before the board in a timely fashion. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Carter.
Thank you. I'll just update on a few ongoing involvements. As you know, we are preparing for the Dale Street Bridge reconstruction project, and we saw that planning and preparation taking place over the past couple of years. Actually, over the past 3 years, as we've been discussing it, it has been also a signature project for our beginning to engender the more robust type of community engagement that we're talking about at this table. And I would just like to say thank you so very much to staff that has been doing this work over the long term with the community and really making space for the community to engage effectively with its own resources as a community partner in this case, for organizations to come to the table along with additional funding, making way for an enhanced community design, making way for discussion of and actually the evolution of additional art that will be a part of this project to enhance it so that it will be the kind of bridge that people can truly embrace, and also making way for a discussion of how we will create opportunity through public works projects such as this for community to be engaged also in work, not just short term on a particular project, but for this to be an avenue for us to actually reach out to community, find people who need work, and attach them to work on an ongoing basis. So I just want to say thank you again, because with increased concern, as we all have, given some recent incidents in our community, crossing accidents, our community has increased its attention and focus on these kinds of projects. And of course, we'll continue to do so as all of us have concern for pedestrians and others who are a part of using these projects and have not always been center in the planning. I'm saying thank you because this was a meeting that truly was a celebration of the kind of participation that we've had, and at which there was great embrace for the design, for the art, for the thinking around engagement in employment. There were 2 suggestions that were made that I can recall, and Commissioner Matis Castillo was there also. Thank you for being there. There were 2 suggestions to enhance safety for pedestrians, and quickly they were embraced as to be considered as we move forward. There was not an agony there in the room about this project not being planned together with our community for us. There was a celebration of the manner in which we have retuned and redesigned the way in which we work with community. So I want to thank Aaron Laverie, certainly the department director, Ted Schenecker, who was there. We also had communications staff there, John Sickfelin, and John O'Phelan, who came to share around employment pathways. So you all should just be very, very proud of the work that you've supported and sponsored and that is being done in our community. I also can share that I attended a meeting of children of incarcerated parents. This is a work group that has been initiated out of the Association of Minnesota Counties together with the state and community and with other counties at the table. There will be a report coming out of that group. I want to highlight it for you. A lot of suggestions for ways in which our counties can be engaged in making certain that children who are impacted when their parents are involved in incarceration are supported. Everything from changing the intake process so that we're even asking the question, are you a parent, and learning how the children might be impacted and gaps that might exist, and connecting them to resources, to thoughts about how we visit or arrange visitation and phone calls and things of that sort. Far more comprehensive ways. Thank you also to Ann Berry, who is participating in that committee and has lots of ideas as to ways in which Ramsey County is already working and changing. One comment, we had an intern in our Human Services Department who, having been at this conversation with Ann Berry a little while ago, discovered that there was no way in our Human Services system to know whether or not a child in child protection had an incarcerated parent. And so no opportunity to actually work with that child and family to discover and to help plug gaps that were based on that incarceration. And so this young lady, an intern, added a field for us, worked on that, and made sure that the system now connects to that. So these suggestions will be coming out and published within the next few months, and we'll share them with you. A third thing I'd like to mention is that we have been involved, as has been highlighted here at our board in the past with the Burns Institute over a period of time working with system partners to look at the history and the future of our systems as they relate to getting better outcomes for young people and for their families. Our values, sharing values across systems in a symbiotic way so that we are understanding how we can unpack areas of our system which have not benefited children and families, and how we can rebuild them so that we're creating advantage and not bias, and really working for better outcomes for all. So we were able to get together this past week in a third session and look forward to continuing that work. And finally, met with the Greater Metropolitan Workforce Council Association this past week. Also, additional funding was pinpointed from DEED to come to our Metropolitan Workforce Collaborative that will support our sector pathway designs and also design for equity, working with the partners at the table. We are in a executive director interview process right now and expect that the executive director for the Greater Metropolitan Workforce Council will be announced within the next month. And we also voted to align with the new Greater MSP 2.0 plan, focusing on the alignment of employment services and economic development. So we'll be doing that work through midpoint this year, and we'll keep you informed about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mattis Castillo, please.
It's unfair that I follow Commissioner Carter, I think, in updates, having only 1 week on the job. But I will just echo Commissioner Carter, the community outreach meeting around the Reconnecting Rondo Historic Bridge and Historic Rondo was fantastic and really sets a standard for our work moving forward. In fact, I left that meeting thinking I want a bridge in my district to be rebuilt. So joking aside, of course, we got other work to do. But it was really fantastic, and to see the wide range of diversity and engagement in that room really speaks to how we're doing this work. So it was quite fantastic. I also held a meet and greet this week in Falcon Heights, so working with the mayor, Mayor Lindstrom in Falcon Heights, really trying to build those relationships as we go forward. And so we jumped off this first week holding a meet and greet in our apartment complex, so really getting a diversity. And again, people are echoing safe transportation, walkability, and those plans, and so reinforcing those values as we move forward. And then Commissioner McGuire briefly mentioned earlier, but many of us will be participating tonight in the League of Women Voters forum, open for folks, public event at the council chambers in Roseville, just talking with constituents about our work moving forward, along with many other elected officials. So if people are up for that, it starts at 6:30 this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and that event is always fun and interesting, and because it is so fast-paced, it just goes like that. But I know that everyone that has participated from an elected standpoint, but also those that are there, really get a great deal of information and share a lot with each of us as well. So it is truly an educational event. I wanted to start out with talking about the legislature and the meetings that are already happening. I am vice chair of the policy committee for the Clean Water Council, and we have 3 recommendations that are being forwarded along with the recommendations for the funding of the legacy funds. The legacy funds, as this board is very well aware, has revamped its entire report so that it is in line with what we have done as a Ramsey County budget. And it has been so well received. The legislators absolutely love being able to not just look at every line item for each agency and try to figure out what it means, but it actually is in these 4 main areas, and so it's very obvious which agencies work on which issues for that goal, for fishable, swimmable water, drinking water, making sure that we're protecting our water resources in Minnesota. The 3 items, one is the pharmaceutical waste, and again, has been very well received, looking at it from an environmental standpoint, but also public safety and the opioid epidemic in getting these prescription drugs disposed of properly. And this one, as I have stated in the past here, is based on the Washington State model, which has the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical industry. It had their support there, and hopefully if we have something here, we can get it here as well. But really, they take on the responsibility for funding this. And so it takes advantage of the opportunities we already have, but it puts it not on taxpayers, but it really puts it back on the industry. It also has then clearly an incentive to make sure that what is being prescribed is not overprescribing and ending up with a lot that has to be disposed of. Another one is on salting of roads and limited liability if you go through this safe, the salt application process. And speaking with Senator Rude yesterday, she commented that she actually went through the training, and whether you have the limited liability part of it or not, which is going to be probably a hard sell, but for private applicators, but she said the amount of salt that doesn't need to be used, not, setting aside everything else, is pretty amazing. And it's just down to earth. Hey, this is what you can do that will keep everyone safe and doesn't wreck the environment and doesn't have salt all over everything. And then the third one is basically about forever green, and that's cover crops and cash cover crops and the work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that's being done on that by the University of Minnesota and others. But this idea is that you bring everybody together, because the supply-demand for Kernza is one of those crops is very difficult, because you have to have the product to then be able to grow it, to be able to sell it. And we just need the players at one table working together, and I think people are very excited about that as well. The other things, the other 2 that I will just mention, is the state of Maplewood had its meeting, and clearly they are trying to figure out, but they seem to have control over, what the next steps are. And I know they had a meeting last night, but I don't know what the outcome was, but of choosing a mayor and then the 2 city council seats that will be open, and how they plan to fill those. And it has been quite a process, but it's really fun to see. It's great to see, actually. I don't know about fun, but great to see how they're really being very methodical about making sure that they're doing this right, and that, there's always going to be criticism and praise, whatever, but they're really doing a very thoughtful process to make sure that they're doing this right for the future of Maplewood. And then the Rush Line open house, it's not really an open house as much as it is a community gathering to get input, as we have done many, many times. And this particular one was in White Bear Lake, and you may have read about it in the newspaper. But it is about the options that have been pulled together for serving downtown White Bear Lake. And there are a number that are really getting a lot of positive feedback. And I can say again, although we've said it many times, that the Clark Avenue site near the library and the parking lot or parking ramp that was there is not, it's being still studied because it's part of what we need to do for due diligence, but it is not something that we do not need a parking ramp there. And so it's off the table. And I don't know how many times I've had to say that, but it just doesn't
Where's
make
the
any
ramp
sense.
going?
There will be no ramp. Anyhow, and so it was a great meeting and really hearing all of the people and their comments, and it's so important to us. And one person said to me that we had differing views, and I said, well, and was I really sure that I wanted to hear it? And I said, of course I do, because that's how we make informed decisions. And so whether you're for or against, and we get a lot of all of that, but making sure that we're offering that opportunity and really opening the door wide open to get whatever comments people have into the process and into the record, because it's important to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. I went to a Mike legislative breakfast this morning out in Stillwater, and great passion on making some impact on affordable housing. Great to see probably 6, 7 cities there, lots of state reps and senators, both Republicans and Democrats, as well as a couple other county commissioners. And hopefully this will be a session that some progress is made on that topic.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. With that, we'll see Commissioners Ryan, Elizabeth, at Keller at 11:30. We'll be starting right at 11:30. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.